Cities are not just places where people live. They're places where values are forged, where challenges are confronted, and where change actually begins. So today, I want to share my story of Hoboken, New Jersey. It's a story of how we confronted hatred, turned towards inclusivity, and began building bridges, both literal and metaphorical, towards a brighter future. So let me take you back to the year of 2017. This was during my first mayoral campaign. And during that campaign, there was a flyer that sought to discredit me. It wasn't a flyer about my policies or my plans, but it exploited fear and hatred. So this flyer that was circulated around Hoboken had the words, in quotes, "Don't let terrorism take over our town," alongside a picture of me. Now, this was an ugly and basic attack designed to divide our city and play on the worst instincts of fear and prejudice. When I first saw it, I felt a wave of anger and disbelief and hurt. Regrettably, my daughter, who was only 10 years old at the time, also saw this flyer. She had associated her father's turban as a source of pride and identity as being a Sikh. This was her first, at the year of 10 years old, her first experience with racism. Against her father, much less. But as I reflected on it, I realized the attack wasn't just personal. It was an attack on everything our city of Hoboken stands for. Hoboken has always been a place of resilience and diversity, a city that has thrived precisely because of the contributions of people from all walks of life. I knew that the best way to respond to this hateful rhetoric was not through anger, but was through action. Hate, you see, thrives when good people stay silent. And in this moment, I refused to stay silent. So I was eventually elected, fortunately. And on my first day mayor, the very first thing was I went to the mayor's office and I signed an executive order declaring Hoboken a fair and welcoming city. Now, what did this mean in practice? First and foremost, it meant reaffirming that Hoboken is a place for everyone, regardless of your background, your religion, or your immigration status. Everyone is valued and has equal rights under the law. It sent a clear message. Hoboken would not be a city where fear dictated policy. This declaration committed us to ensuring that city resources would not be used to enforce unjust immigration actions. It meant creating careful pathways for marginalized communities to engage with city government and to be a part of the decision-making process. But most importantly, it set a tone of respect and inclusion, not just in our policies, but in everyday interaction. Yet, as symbolic as this order was, I knew that symbols alone would not suffice. We needed to build real trust, foster dialogue, and create opportunities for all residents to feel seen and heard. So, in addition to governmental policy action, one of the ways we began to do this was through public art. Art in itself has a unique ability to bring people together, to spark conversations, and to create a shared sense of ownership over public spaces. In Hoboken, we reimagined something as ordinary as crosswalks. Working with local artists and community groups, we turned our crosswalks in Hoboken into vibrant expressions of the city's diversity. For example, we painted one crosswalk in the rainbow colors of the LGBTQ plus pride flag, a celebration of love and equality. This crosswalk wasn't just art. It was a message, a declaration that everyone in our city belonged, and a reminder of the beautiful diversity that actually defines us as a city. However, as we all know, unfortunately, this is not how it was viewed by everyone. So let me just tell you a real quick story. There was a local cafe owner in Hoboken. He's from the LGBTQ plus community, and he's known colloquially as Uncle Milton. Uncle Milton's Cafe is the name of his cafe. And unfortunately, his pride flag hanging over his cafe one night was desecrated. It was taken down, and he was hurt. So the next day I went to his cafe, and after speaking to him, I decided that the city would paint the road in front of his cafe, which actually was situated from across a park where children played, and we would paint that road in the Pride rainbow colors to show solidarity in response to what was an ugly incident that had become citywide news. But this act of love and solidarity was not received well by all. So one day, I was at the park. So there was a park across the cafe, and I was at the park. I was just playing baseball with my son. He was 11 years old. I was just throwing some balls. He was hitting some balls, getting some practice. And as we exited the park, I was confronted by a very angry man. And he was upset because he stated that by painting those pride colors across the street from a park where children were playing, it was sending a wrong message to little children. So I explained to the man that my son, my daughter, or their classmates might be transgender, they might be from the LGBTQ community, but this does not make them any lesser. And it was important in my eyes to display that the display of equality be placed next to a park specifically because it sends a message to the next generation of youth that Hoboken is a city that stands up for the equal rights of all people. But not all people see things this way, and I think this is a challenge for us to confront in the years ahead. But at the end, this experiment of creating crosswalks did something unexpected. They became gathering spots. People stopped to take pictures, to talk about the designs, and to share their own stories. So what started as a simple idea actually became a catalyst for connection. But art alone isn't enough. We knew that creating a truly inclusive city required something deeper and more innovative approaches to community engagement. So during my time as mayor, I actually realized, I know we're just back from lunch, but that food can actually be a very powerful tool for promoting cultural connection and social cohesion. So let me give you an example. So one day, this is earlier on in my term as mayor, I was approached by a Muslim resident of the city of Hoboken, and he had a very simple request. There's a very small Muslim community in Hoboken, but he had a very simple request. He said, "Mayor, can you host an Eid dinner at the conclusion of Ramadan for the Muslim community in Hoboken?" And I thought to myself, I was like, well, first of all, I'm not a really good cook. I can barely cook toast and eggs for my wife in the morning, so how am I going to cook this Eid dinner? But what I did realize when I thought about it was that one of Hoboken's largest immigrant communities is from Italy. We have a large Italian community. And that Italian community in Hoboken has a rich cultural history that consists of Italian social clubs that are scattered across the city. And in these social clubs, you get delicious traditional Italian meals that are cooked for club members every day. And I can personally attest that the food at those clubs are delicious. And the cappuccino is also very strong. So what I did was I contacted one of those Italian social clubs, and I asked them, would you be willing to host an Eid dinner at the conclusion of Ramadan for the Muslim community in Hoboken? And just a couple weeks later, there they sat, a group of Italian immigrants with Muslim Americans, enjoying a nice, warm Italian meal in honor of Eid at the conclusion of Ramadan. I remember this clearly, one particularly powerful moment during that dinner was when I actually realized that dietary restrictions required that the meat be cooked in a way called halal. It's in accordance with Islamic faith practices. So I rushed to the Italian chef in the kitchen to explain this to him, that the meat, if we have Muslim guests, has to be cooked in accordance with a certain practice. And without hesitation, he said that Italian social club had thought about that ahead of time, and they had made a trip to a neighboring city in Paterson, New Jersey, to find a local store where they could buy halal meat. And it's that type of thoughtfulness that really made my heart warm, knowing that our Muslim residents could actually enjoy halal chicken marsala that evening. So it's these types of initiatives that don't just bring people together, but they actually build trust. They reminded us that no matter our differences, we want the same things: safety, opportunity, a sense of belonging, and of course, delicious food. So the lessons learned. I've learned about 3 quick lessons that I think apply universally. Number 1 is that leadership requires courage. Taking a stand against hatred isn't always easy. It can be politically risky, and it often comes with backlash. But the good news is that courage is contagious. When leaders take bold steps, they inspire other leaders to do the same thing. And that creates a ripple effect across the community. Number 2, symbols matter, but actions matter more. A declaration or a mural can inspire, but real change requires policies and programs that make inclusion tangible. Whether it's providing resources to immigrant communities or fostering youth engagement, action is what transforms aspirations into reality. And number 3 and last, inclusion is a process, not a destination. There is no finish line when it comes to creating and building a more inclusive city. It requires constant effort, openness to feedback, and you have to have a willingness to adapt. As leaders, we must commit to this work for the long haul. The story of Hoboken is just one example of what is possible. Across the globe, cities like Cape Town, Copenhagen, and countless others are at the front lines of this work. So we here today are uniquely positioned to lead a charge, because cities are where diversity actually lives. And that's why gatherings like the Strong Cities Global Summit are so important. They remind us that we're not alone in our work. They give us a platform to share our successes and learn from one another's challenges. Together, we are building not just stronger cities, but we're actually building a stronger world. As I reflect on Hoboken's journey towards greater strength and resilience, I'm filled with hope. What began at the beginning of these remarks as a painful experience of division and hatred has transformed into a story of resilience and unity. Our city is far from perfect, but we're moving forward, one step, one crosswalk, one conversation at a time. So, in conclusion, to my fellow leaders here today, let's leave this summit with renewed energy and determination. Let's build cities that embrace every resident, uplift every voice, and celebrate every culture. And let us remember that in the face of hatred, our greatest weapon is actually love. Thank you very much.